I told you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the fourth annual Turn Your Hobby into a Business Summit. Very excited. As you can probably tell from the name, this is the fourth year that we've done this, which is pretty cool. This session or this series is all about helping people who want to take their side hustle, their hobby, something that they're passionate about, whether that's food or crafts or social media or art or some sort of skill or something like that, and turn it into a real bona fide business. We're not going to get to like every part of business ownership throughout this series because that would take us forever, but we are going to point you to a whole bunch of resources that exist in that realm so that you can find where you need to go. You can tap into all the many opportunities for you as a business owner here in the state. There are quite a few, most of them 100% free. I am joined here by my colleague Gabby, who will be running the chat. So if you have any questions at any time, go ahead and put them right in the chat. Whether for the first part of this session, if you have questions for our business panelists, or whether in the second half of the session you have a question for our presenter on something, just put those questions right in the chat and we're happy to get you an answer as quickly as we can, time permitting, of course. If you would rather ask a question or communicate in Spanish in the chat, you can feel comfortable going ahead to do that as well. We will get you an answer the same exact way, so no worries. If you are more comfortable speaking in Spanish, feel free to ask away. I also want to note that we are recording. You see the little red blinking light up there. That means that we're recording. We are doing so because everyone who registers for either one of this series, or either one of the parts of this series, you're going to get a copy of the recording. Okay, it's automatically going to come to you by email. We will send you a copy of any slides that are shared, any handouts that are shared. You're going to get everything, even if you only registered for one of the sessions. And this will also be posted to our YouTube channel afterwards. So if for some reason you don't get it, you're welcome to reach out to us, but it'll also be there for you as well, along with many of the other sessions that we deal with or that we put on throughout the year. I also want to mention, if you're more comfortable using closed captioning, or if closed captioning will help you follow along, that is an option for you. You just click the little CC button on the top or bottom of your screen, depending on what device you're using. I see somebody is using it already. And then you can configure those settings so that it works the best for you. Okay. So Secretary Amore is not available to join us today. He's actually on the road traveling for a family function, but he did want to say hi to everybody, so he did put together a video for you. So I'm going to play that for a moment, and then we will get right into the nitty-gritty. Give me just a second here to share my screen. Listen, we're not allowed to have technical difficulties. That's one of my rules. Okay.
Hi, I'm Secretary of State Gregg M, and I'm excited to welcome you to the fourth annual From Passion to Profit, Turn Your Hobby into a Business series. This two-part virtual event will help you think through some of the important things to consider when you're taking a leap to turn your passion project into a small business. Local businesses are truly the heart of our state's communities and neighborhoods. Members of my own family are business owners, and I know how difficult it can be to start your own business. But at the Department of State, we're here to help. I'm looking forward to hearing your success stories as you take your passion from a hobby to a business. I hope you enjoyed part one of this series. If you need any assistance in the future, please do not hesitate to reach out to my office.
Secretary Amore joined us in January as our new Secretary of State, and if you haven't had a chance to meet with him or speak with him yet, you should know that he's big on education. So he loves this kind of stuff, right? He really would love to be here with us. It just didn't work out today. But you should really feel comfortable reaching out to him or any of the rest of the divisions in our office if you do have any questions, you need any support. Working with the state or working with the government can be a big, scary thing. It doesn't have to be. And we really are here to help, right? I know that that's a classic thing to say, we're from the government and we're here to help, but we really do want to help you, right? And Secretary Amore is on board with that. So please feel free, like I said, to put any questions in the chat and to reach out to us after the series or anytime during, by email, by phone. And we are happy to do whatever we can to support you in getting your business off the ground, figuring out what to do, finding resources, accessing all the things that you might need to be successful. And speaking of successful, today we are joined by several really fantastic businesses that have sacrificed their time to be with us today. We're going to do a little bit of a panel discussion with these businesses and talk about what it was like for them to turn their passion, their hobby, their side hustle into something that is a business. Now, we have a range of different types of businesses on this panel. We have some that this is their full-time job. We have some that it's not, and it's something that is a side income. We have people in different industries. We have people that sell through different sales channels. So we're going to do our best to hear from about all of those different ways that people become business owners, and all of the different shapes and sizes that businesses come in, right? It's really easy to see successful business owners on TV and on Shark Tank, right? And think, oh, I could never be that because I'll never sell billions of dollars of product. That's not what being a business owner is all about. We'd love you to sell billions of dollars of product. Wouldn't that be great if we had the next Amazon, coming out a little roadie? But there are so many different ways to be successful in business, as I think you will hear from our really fantastic panelists today. I'm going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. So I'm going to go in the order that I see them here on my screen. If you could just introduce who you are, what your business is, what product or service you sell, so we can get to know you before we get into everything. And we will start with Carissa and Sandy.
Good morning. My name is Carissa Meekins.
And I'm Sandy Meekins.
And we are co-owners of Divas Dips and Gourmet Treats. We are a self-taught chocolate and treat business, and we specialize in making custom decorated sugar cookies.
Thank you so much. How about Kate? It looks like you are next on my screen here. Hold on just a second. Let's just unmute you. Perfect.
Okay.
Yep. Perfect.
Okay. My name is Kate Hummel Callahan, and I own the Yucky River Bee Farm. I am a beekeeper, and I also make some personal care products. And I'm also delving into like a lot of herbalism things. And I'm a one-man show, and this is my side gig. I also have a big girl job.
I kind of feel like this is also a big girl job, so maybe you have a big girl
It
job.
is,
Let's not
yes.
sell ourselves short here. Thank you, Kate. Okay, Laura, you are up.
Everyone, my name is Laura Afonso. I am the creator of social media food blog Buns and Bites. I started Buns and Bites 6 years ago, and I have my dream job. I get to go around to Rhode Island's best restaurants and review them and share them with my followers and help support small businesses in Rhode Island. I get to eat a lot of good food. I'm very lucky.
Let's say apart from what I'm doing now, you have my dream job.
Yes. Yes, I think I have many people's dream job.
Very jealous, but I'll let you have it. It's fine.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Sean?
Hi everyone, my name is Sean Maloney. I am the owner and founder of 13 Stars Hot Sauce. We are a veteran-owned and operated premium hot sauce company based out of Warren, Rhode Island. We do give a portion of our profits back to support U.S. veteran and first responder causes as well. So that's really what drives us, is that mission-focused aspect of our business, or my business.
And if you like hot sauce on your eggs, second to none. Just want you to know. And last but certainly not least, Moreo from Piper Brown Photography. Oh, there you go.
Sorry, I tried to unmute myself and it said no. My name is Mariah Sales. I am the owner and founder of Piper Brown Photography. I'm a wedding and event photographer based in Providence, Rhode Island. And this is my side hustle. I photograph weddings in and around New England pretty much 24/7. And when I'm not doing that, I work as a school psychologist in an education system. So I do two things that I love very much: work with children and then also eat wedding cake and dance.
Amazing. Thank you
Nice.
so much. So that is a brief introduction to our panelists. We'll get started with some questions. As I said, if you have any questions for our panelists while they're talking, you're like, I don't know what that means, or I want to hear more about that, or I'm thinking about doing something similar and I want to hear what that actually was like for them, put that right in the chat. We'll ask out loud. It does not need to be the Kristen Cordero show. Okay. I have some questions that we'll ask, but certainly we'd like to hear from the audience as well. This is for you. This is about what you can learn from these various business owners that have joined us here today. So do not be shy. Okay. So the first question is going to be for everybody. I think you are welcome to just kind of pipe up as you wish. I'm not going to keep calling on everybody like we are in middle school. And the question is a one that's probably on most people's minds, right? What was the tipping point? When did you decide that, okay, I really love this thing I'm doing. I'm pretty good at it. I'm gonna take the leap and turn this into a business. What was that tipping point for you? Anybody who'd like to start, please do.
I think I'm still unmuted, so I'll talk. For me, I have always been around photography, and it was just something that my uncles and my sister and members of my family did. And I was helping a friend out with a wedding, and I'm pretty good at it. So I said, sure, why not? And I realized just how much fun it was to celebrate with people. And so I kept doing it, and until I realized it was a viable source of income. And so I decided I would do this. This is my retirement plan, so to speak, even though I'm working two jobs at the same time. But that's when I decided I can probably turn this into something more. And I became incorporated in 2018, and I've been going ever since.
Love it. Who is next? I was gonna say, Kate, you look like you're unmuted too. So go for it.
So for myself, I, being a beekeeper, you also have a lot of things that are left over, and I'm a resource person. So instead of letting those things go to waste, it was like, what can I do with them? So obviously the honey, people can eat that and use that for many other different things. The wax I incorporated into lip balm, and I would give them away for as gifts, and it just went from there, like the propolis and other different things from the beehive. And when I started out, I would just give people these things as gifts, and they were like, "You need to go into business. You need to go into business." So I started, and I said, "I'm only going to make one thing: lip balms." It escalated.
So to kind of hop in here as well, when I started Buns and Bites, I was actually in graduate school. I was getting my master's in educational counseling at PC. And I had this idea that I thought was going to be like a weird and like funky idea. I didn't really know where it was going to go. So it was very much a hobby. Starting a food blog kind of tends to be a lot of people's hobbies that, people do with social media. I never really thought that it would lead me to a career where I am now. So I'm like very pleasantly surprised. But basically, the tipping point for me was growing to a point where businesses were just asking to work with me. In the beginning, while I was getting started, I was really reaching out to businesses, hoping to connect with them. And then I got to a point where people were calling me, and I felt like, okay, now I think I can actually turn this into something. And from there, it just continued to escalate. And I was able to get incorporated and actually turn this into a business model because, as we all know today, social media is one of the top ways to advertise and be able to connect with people in your community. So it kind of worked out very well, but it was also a long process and took a lot of work. But I would say that I was able to identify it by just my response from the people that I was working with.
So it sounds like you and Kate had kind of a similar experience where that you discovered a demand, right?
Yeah.
You were kind of going about your thing
Yes.
and discovered a demand. Great.
Absolutely.
Carissa and Sandy, you look like you're unmuted and ready to go.
So I am a retired school teacher. And as a church, we're doing a fundraiser in church. And so I made treats for the fundraiser and they seemed to go over really well. So I said to my sister, what do you think? I should start a business. I had worked with chocolate many years ago. And she said, well, it'll either work or it won't. And so I started. And then it became, I have no knowledge, had no knowledge of chocolate at all, but took some chocolate classes with some chocolate academies and learned how to temper my own chocolate. It's quite a challenge, I'll have to tell you that. But I did it, and then it got to the point where I grew and I was growing, and then my daughter had a baby, and he was autistic. Carissa had the baby, and he was autistic, and she couldn't go back to work. She could work help me out with with when she had time. And then it got to the point where it was getting bigger. And so we went to Mill Ray's Kitchen because we needed a kitchen. And from Mill Ray's Kitchen, it has just bloomed. We are now in our own shop. We have a shop in Hope Artist Village in Pawtucket on Main Street. We work extremely hard. Never thought we'd work this hard. I work harder now than I ever did teaching.
Well, hopefully it's just as rewarding.
It is.
And you all do a really great job on social media, kind of giving a glimpse of behind the scenes, your process, which I think really helps.
It's literally
Carissa
just
does
her and
that.
I do everything. I have no social media presence or anything. I actually have followed Laura for quite some time. So I kind of use some of what she does and just, I don't know, just put out what I would want to see in a video or on social media. So because of a very difficult situation with my son being diagnosed, I left my career, which was the other part of the story. I left my career as a medical technologist and kind of had to make this work for us to advocate for him. And it worked out and is working out. So
Love
yeah.
to hear it. Who's next?
I think it's just me left. But it's awesome to see you guys are also just like building up from not knowing anything about chocolate and just figuring things out. It's very similar to myself. Or my story starts back in 2018. I was getting back from a deployment. I wasn't exactly I knew I wanted to start a business. There were a lot of entrepreneurial books. Deployments do some funny things to your head in terms of put things in perspective. You need very little while you're out there to make it work. It definitely puts a perspective shift on you in terms of just how short this life is. There's definitely something that you want, or I personally wanted to work towards, something that was my own, something that I would be proud of, something that I could genuinely just have as my own entity and something I could work towards. While also giving back to the U.S. veteran and first responder community. That was no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I knew that was going to be the base of the business, but the other aspect was, what the heck am I going to be selling? So fast forward to me getting back from my deployment. My good friend, his dad actually grows peppers in his backyard, ranging from jalapenos all the way up to ghost peppers. So we were taking some peppers from his garden, making some sauces with them. Honestly, 90% of them were terrible. The 10% that were good, we bottled up into amazing jars. We had some friends and family over. I love hosting family and friends for dinner. I had my mother and a few other people come over, and they're like, I could see you selling this at a boutique store. Like, this would be really cool. I'm like, I've always liked hot sauce. I've always liked these things. So we went on the Amazon, bought some bottles, brought it to a Patriots game. No intention of like selling anything. Just like, hey, sample this. How do you like it? It was just an immediate hit. People are like, where can I buy this? I need more of this. I just need to, I need this in my life. So the proverbial light bulb kind of went off at that point. We had a little bit of a delay in terms of a 6-month deployment between then and our official launch in December 2019. But we've been running strong since then.
So what I'm hearing as a theme is try again, right?
Yeah.
And really, it seems like that demand, building that demand, and kind of just getting out, putting your stuff out there, and seeing if people like it is kind of a common theme that I'm hearing from all of you, which is a common theme for most business owners, right? Really interesting, Sean, that the impetus for you starting a business was really the giving back aspect of it, and you landed on a product later. And from talking to you, it's clear that is a huge part of your business, and I think that's a really cool way that you brand your business as well. I know it's not a marketing tool, but it's a great marketing tool, right? People want to support causes that are near and dear to them, and it's great that it's near and dear to you as well, and that really shines through for so many of you, right? It's so clear that you are still passionate about what it is you're doing. It's not like you just want to line your pockets. That would be lovely to line our pockets, but that's not at the core what it's about, right? It's about putting great product out there. It is about getting yourself out in the community and connecting with other Rhode Islanders, other folks around the region and around the country to share your passion. I love to hear it. Okay, next question is, I don't want to be a wet blanket, but we're going to talk about challenges. Okay, it's not always sunshine and rainbows. There are going to be challenges when you are moving from a steady career or something that you are comfortable in and trying out this new thing and hoping it works, right? Those challenges can sometimes be soothed by outside support, but they're still going to be there. So my question is, what was your biggest challenge in kind of making that leap? Was it a faith thing, like I just need to be brave and do it? Was that the challenge, or was it some other form of a barrier for you in deciding whether or not to turn your passion, your hobby into a business? Let's start with, actually, let's go right back to Sean. We'll let you keep talking.
Yeah. So can you repeat the question one more time? Just make sure I'm answering it fully.
Yeah, we just want to talk about what kind of challenges you experienced or overcame when you were making that leap in creating your business.
Sure. Yeah. So many challenges in terms of just running a business. I think any business owner knows they basically become a professional problem solver throughout their time here. There's just any and everything that can go wrong will go wrong. There's just like before this meeting even started, we have all these other things, but to deal with that came up. But in terms of actually starting the business, in terms of the biggest challenges and hurdles that we went over to, that was really just having the time and energy to get into it. I know that sounds kind of silly, but it's that balancing act of at the time I started the business, I was still working a full-time job. I was still going to school full-time. I was still serving the military. And I'm also trying to run a business on top of that. So I think the biggest hurdle is really the time management aspect. And it still can be a problem today. And it's one of those things you just need to work through your never-ending to-do list. And that's one of those things where you only get better the more you do it. You make that 1% difference every day in the business. Over that time, that 1% is just going to elevate your business significantly more. So I think the biggest hurdle initially was really just finding the timing. Not necessarily the energy, was more so the time, because the passion was always there. I knew I wanted to start a business. I can stay up all night, but at the same time, it'd be affecting my other aspects of my life.
I don't think that sounds silly at all. You had a lot of nodding heads when you said time. Kate, do you want to speak to any challenges that you experienced?
Sure. Mine was also time and the courage to do this, because this was like uncharted waters for me, because I am a nurse So I could save your life, but running a business is totally Greek to me. And it was just like organization and educating my stuff to how do you start the business, um, tax, different tax that you have to pay, permits that you have to have, insurance that you have to have. It was just like that long educational process, and that's just like a small piece of it, because then it's like whatever your product is, the marketing of it, the packaging of it, and all different things like that. But organization, I would say, if this is your side hustle, that you really have to be organized.
And that's a nice segue, Kate, that just so you all know, who are sitting in the audience, the next session, next Saturday, is all about navigating
Ah,
registration and taxes and licensing and all of that fun stuff. So um, there's hope on the horizon, but yes, being organized helps in
yeah.
all aspects of business ownership. Absolutely. Who else would like to speak to this?
I
Mariah?
definitely want to, oh, sorry.
So go ahead, Carissa.
Oh, definitely want to chime in and just mirror everything.
Yeah.
One of us is organized and one of us is not. And that was our big, and still is our biggest challenge. And I have like OCD, and like anything out of place drives me mad. And my mother, is the actual opposite. And so on top of, just like Kate said, permits and licenses, and we're working with food. So it's a whole different area. Our insurance, our like we have to be extremely careful. Quality care, everything, making sure that our labeling for our allergies is there. And on top of that, we are the only ones making the product. There's, we get help, but it's just essentially us doing everything. So for us, I feel like if we found someone in the finance business world to help us out in the beginning, I think it would have been easier. We're learning that now, and I can't stress enough that to us is definitely our biggest challenge, not knowing anything about business and kind of diving into it and wanting to do all these grand ideas, and should have scaled back on perfecting a certain amount of product that we wanted to put out there, perfecting that, and then moving forward instead of saying yes to everyone and anyone and working 48 plus hours with no sleep, and burning ourselves out, and crying and everything else. So I definitely think that being organized and having some knowledge or help in that area for business for us was our biggest challenge.
Thank you so much for your honesty in talking about what it actually looks like to run a business, right? It's a lot more than just putting those products on the shelves or on social media. There's a whole heck of a lot else that goes into it. Mariah, did you want to talk about your challenges? Any challenges you experienced?
I think I've experienced each and every one of the challenges that the other panelists have discussed. I think a challenge that a lot of small business owners face, where you're the single point of failure, your IT, your HR, your all the departments that you get to call when you work for a bigger company. I think, and I know this is going to sound a little ridiculous, but I hope that the panelists also sort of feel what I feel is the challenge of when you're successful, when your product makes what you expect, but then suddenly demand outpaces what you've got. And suddenly you have to make decisions as to, okay, I have to grow. I know I need more stuff. But there's a fear that comes with that, because again, you're expanding and you're that one person. So it's an unfamiliar sensation that you would sometimes be afraid of success. But it's something that I discovered I am not alone in, and I talk with other business owners, and so it's something definitely to to keep in the back of your mind that you're going to be successful at no matter what you do if you're passionate at it, and then your success will frighten you. So that's been a challenge too.
It's like meeting your heroes, right? You have this vision in your head of what it's going to be like, and you hope that it looks exactly like what you expect. Great. So again, thank you for your honesty and talking about what. Laura, did we skip you? I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Go for it.
So I think that when anyone starts a side hustle or a hobby, if you have that goal, if your trajectory is to like turn it into more career based or a side job, we kind of all, for the most part, have the idea of being our own boss. That's the freedom of being able to turn a hobby or a side hustle into a career. And I think that that was a big struggle for me, because obviously the idea of being your own boss is really fantastic because you work for yourself and you answer to yourself. But there's two sides to that coin because you have to really be holding yourself accountable. You are the one in charge and you're calling the shots. And, even though I think everyone here has other jobs outside. I work in real estate. So if I had a very busy long weekend, I need to make sure that I'm sending out emails and keeping on top of my taxes and all of these other things, the components of running a business. And if I don't, then the business won't move forward and it won't grow. So I struggle with that a little bit. I still struggle with it. I definitely it was an adjustment for me to, stay on top of my own stuff when I was started to make that initial transition. And kind of like everyone said, like we all have the same woes of, I personally have no business background. I have no marketing or social media background. It was a lot of learn as I go, and figuring out like, how do I file my taxes? How do I set up an LLC? How do I do all of these things that are going to be the basis of my business? And what are the resources that I can use? Because as Rhode Island, we are a small state, but we are obviously very community driven and everyone knows someone. So for me, I definitely leaned on my friends, family, and community quite a bit to say like, hey, can someone help me set this up? Because I have no idea how to do it. So the struggle was definitely there, but absolutely just working through it as best as you can.
You beat me to the punch because the next question is all about support and what your experience was in finding folks to help you. So um, it's easy to think when you're gonna start a new business that you're gonna be a one man or one woman show. It's never how it actually works, right? Maybe you don't have people joining your business, but you've got cheerleaders on the sidelines. You have family members who sacrifice time with you while you are building this thing, right? You have maybe people offering financial support. You have people helping you pack products. You have people helping you promote. I just want to talk about what that village looks like for each of you, including, if any of you used any organizations in the state, like any nonprofits in the state that helped you out, or any business support resources to help you get where you wanted to be. It's okay if the answer is no, but I just want to talk about what that support systems, that support network looked like and currently looks like for each of you. So Laura, I think you answered, unless there's anything that you want to add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, when I first started doing Buns and Bites, I definitely had the feeling that no one's ever going to be as passionate about this as I am. It's my project. And although my friends and family were incredibly supportive in the beginning, I really relied on everyone in order to create my content, dragging my husband out to restaurants with me. And if he wasn't available, and I had to find someone else to help me. So in the beginning, it was a lot of really relying on other people. And like I said, no one is going to be as passionate about your business as you are. So it came to a point where I realized that not only would hiring someone help me with my organization and just having a better business model, it's also going to just really enhance my business. I ended up hiring a photographer that I now work with full time, and that's going to make my content look clean and stand out and be an asset and a deliverable to the businesses that I'm working with. So I think that, yes, it definitely takes a village, and to not be so scared about branching out and saying like, okay, I definitely need to hire the help in order to help me pack the product, help me do anything that's in your business, whatever it might be to hire a second shooter or help with edits. Everyone here on the panel, I'm sure, has some need that they could use the extra help for, and it's only going to enhance the business. So definitely leaning on, of course, your friends and family are going to be your cheerleaders, and they're going to be your support, and we need that. But I think that really looking into what can I do to boost my business and how can I add to my team to really help it grow and move forward.
Awesome.
Definitely want to echo a lot of that. There's a lot of really good information there, and it's really getting comfortable with being uncomfortable to a degree, especially when you're handing off your passion or you're handing off something that you know is not going to get done the way you want it to be done. That's fine, and it's coming to that conclusion of just being, you're have to be a manager at some point. You're gonna have to give up that control. You're gonna have to just be moving towards something that's you're the captain of the ship, and you're the one that's gonna have to steer everybody into the right direction. I think being an officer, I've recently transitioned over to being an officer in the military, and that's been probably the biggest catalyst for helping me be able to do what I'm doing now and feel comfortable giving other people opportunities to help with the business, whether that be family members or contractors. We're in a stage 2 of business now, where we're actually handing over a lot of the business aspects towards a co-packing facility. So we're handing off my baby, handing off my recipes to another company that's going to be able to help us scale. Hey, we can now walk up to a large grocery store and say, hey, we'd like to be part of your brand. And it's getting comfortable with being uncomfortable in that situation, because that is really something that you're just, oof. It seems like a big just jump. And as I stated a little bit earlier as well, it's your success is something you can get scared of. And it's one of those things where you're just it's like, oh, I don't know how to navigate this. This is all new to me. But I will say mentorship really ties in nicely to that as well. SBA, I don't know, we'll probably go over the resources later, but I can't vouch for enough for having a mentor that's either in the space or has done these things, has been in the trenches, that allows you to really get a good picture of what it looks like, those next phases.
Yes.
And currently right now we're working with Hope in Maine, which is the facility that we cook out of. And as we transition out, they've been super helpful with giving us the ability to tap into their resources in terms of personnel, marketing, what have you. But really the contracting part of it too is like, hey, we need some hands to help us cook this hot sauce this weekend. Cool, great. We can send you guys 3 contacts to come help you. So it's really being, and I can't vouch enough for, and it's kind of been this past year, give or take, that I've been more comfortable with doing so, of taking a step back and allowing people to do things for me in terms of being comfortable with, hey, I can hand off this marketing to somebody else. It may be the way that I want to do it, but they may be better at doing it. And it eases my burden and my mental capacity to be able to do other things and, be that captain, be the person that's steering the ship, rather than the person that's in the weeds, in the trenches, and, one making the hot sauce at midnight and then labeling it the next day and then having to go to the market and then market. And it's just, so it's being comfortable with being uncomfortable is really what I want everybody to take away from this.
Great. I think that's something a lot of people struggle with, is letting go of control when it's something that you're really passionate about. So I could absolutely see that being the case. And we will be talking, just a little plug, in the next session about a whole bunch of resources. And Sean mentioned mentoring and coaching. So we'll be talking about a lot of those options that are available to you. It is really valuable to have somebody who's been in your shoes before, just for free, being your bestie and helping you walk through their experience, and helping you navigate what it looked like for them, so you can learn from their mistakes or copy exactly what they did, because obviously it worked, right? Okay, who else would like to pipe up?
I can also chime in on this, to what Laura and Sean both said with regards to having your cheerleaders. It's important also, at least for me, to understand that your cheerleaders can't automatically become your delegates. You can't just always hand certain things off to them. At some point, as a business owner, you have to figure out more, I don't want to say professional, but more objective partners that can look at your business in a different view. My husband teases me. I am married with 3 children, and he teases me that when he retires, he will do all the things that I didn't do because I'm the first person in the family to make the mistakes in the business, and he'll just follow and go, okay, she went here, don't go there. And I will have to say, learning how to be a business owner has been one of my greatest challenges, but I'm finding that organizations in the state with the SBA and SCORE and joining other professional organizations have been very helpful for me. These are things, this is where I listen to other people and I see what they're doing. And I try to emulate some of those in my business. One of the things that I delegated right away was my accounting. I think it was Carissa and her mom who mentioned the financial aspect of having someone in your corner. There's nothing worse than coming with a bucket of paper to your accountant and them looking at you like, what is this? She laughs. Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one who does that. So I had to hire a bookkeeper. I had to hire an accountant because I know that there are certain things that the government requires of me to show as a business owner with regards to financial aspects, but that is not and will never be one of my strong suits. I hate doing that aspect of my job. And while I was not comfortable necessarily handing it off, it was almost a very big relief because now I didn't have to worry about that. I just give them the things and they do the things. Do I know what they do? Who knows? But I'm just glad that it's getting done and it's getting done right. So definitely working with the professionals. I think Laura mentioned she works with someone who helps her with her marketing. So I'll be hitting you up later because that's another aspect. Social media as a business owner is excruciating, but that's it.
I don't think you're alone in not loving taxes. So I think that's a pretty common pain point for people, whether they're business owners or not. I know the dreaded shoebox when you walk into the accountant's office with the shoebox and they give you that look, right? Like, oh, why? Why would you ever do this to me? That's really great advice. Thank you so much. I have a question in the chat that I just wanted to address. I think this is probably directed to you, Laura, but anybody else is welcome to pipe up. They're looking if you have any recommendations on how to find people to hire. Like, how do you prepare your business to bring on staff? How do you determine what your needs are, and how do you find that right person?
I think that this is going to vary from business to business. My personal experience was I ended up having like a lot of creatives around me, and just kind of matching my personality with who I wanted to be spending my time with, and who I thought could produce the quality that I was looking for. So, I kind of just happened to fall into a great relationship with my photographer, Jackie. She's amazing. And I worked with her in a capacity outside of Buns and Bites. And then I kind of roped her in because I recognized that she had the excellent skills, quality, and the personality that I could work with. And, she's ended up becoming one of my closest friends over the time. But I think that it's obviously everyone on the panel is going to have different experiences with this because everyone's going to have different skills that they're looking for. But I think that there's some resources in the state in terms of seeking out help that you can utilize. But I think that my experience is more like community and my personal sphere oriented, where I'm connecting with either my personal connections or friends of friends, and really leaning on that aspect of it.
Perfect. Thank you. We're getting short on time. We have a couple questions in the chat, but there is one question I want to get to before we get there. And this will be my last question to you. And I want you to close your eyes and think back to day one for you, right? You're back at square one. You're thinking about starting this business. What do you wish you had done differently on day one to, where it would have been easier for you to get to where you are today? What do you wish you had known when you started out? Anybody who would like to chime in on that one, you are welcome to.
Having operating manual, not for running the business, but of what I do. So to what Laura says, where you want to now hire somebody, I've tried to, that's not true. I have hired someone to help me. And there's nothing worse than realizing that you do so many things that if you don't write it down and document it and have an SOP as I don't even know what it's called. I guess it's an SOP, standard operating procedures. It's hard to tell people what to do. That I wish I had done. I wish I had sort of had someone following behind and writing things down because it made sense to me to do what I did. And then when I got big enough to be able to hire someone, I could just hand this off and they would understand this is what you need to do and why and when.
That's it. I've never heard that one before, but that makes perfect sense to me. That's really insightful. Thank you. Sean, looks like you have some.
Yeah, definitely 100% echo that. I was basically about to say the ability for you to create these standing operating procedures. They are very common in the military. They will not let you touch any of their equipment without knowing exactly how to do those things. And I hesitated to become bureaucratic to a degree. I think that's probably the biggest hesitancy when I initially started. And at least that's how I saw it, as just being creating paperwork for the sake of creating paperwork. But going forward to where we are now, it's kind of biting me in the butt in terms of not having these standard operating procedures created for the business. For, hey, I've hired help. Hey, this is how you're going to be cooking the hot sauce. Hey, this is how you're going to be posting on social media. Hey, these are the items that you need to be doing. And also it comes to help too as well with, but into the previous question, is when you go to hire somebody else, you didn't know exactly what you're asking them to do, so they understand how to do their job and how to do it well.
Kind of to hop on that, on what Sean was saying, I'm in the school of thought that a business is only as strong as your weakest system. So systems are everything, and having those in place is incredibly important. Having those to follow as a guideline. And like if you do get to the point where you want to hire someone, it's kind of like the blueprint for them as well. And having those like core systems in place. I think that if I were to go back to the very beginning of when I started Buns and Bites, I would tell myself to be a little bit more aggressive and less fearful in terms of speaking up and asking for what I wanted. I was in the in-between point of when I first started to when it was the tipping point of starting to be able to produce income from it. I was very intimidated to ask for money. I didn't feel like I had that right to ask for money for people to pay me. But essentially, I eventually got comfortable with it enough that I felt I am providing a service, I am providing a value, I have deliverables in hand. But I had to really get comfortable with speaking up and asking for what I wanted. So I would go back and tell myself, you are providing a lot of great things to business owners, and you can ask for the things that you want, and you can scale that as your business grows. So that, looking back, I definitely would push myself a little bit more and tell myself that you can do it.
I love that. Thank you. Chris and Sandy, I think you have something you'd like to say.
We wish that we had a business plan in the very beginning. So we started out backwards. Never knew anything. What we've learned, we're learning. It's like every day we learn and we grow. We learn and we grow. We really can't afford to hire anyone. So family has certainly been such a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
My sister and my sister-in-law, we kind of burned them out. But they've helped. And now we have
A med student.
we have a Met student who we are teaching. We want to be in the community. It's very important. We want to work with the kids. We want to teach them how a business really works.
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of them say, oh, I'm going to start my own business. Well, do you know how?
Because we didn't.
Because we
We're
didn't.
still learning.
And we are learning. We've learned a lot. And to go off of everything that everyone else said, yeah, I'll tell you, those taxes and being responsible and making sure they're in on time and heck yeah. And I've learned a lot about Excel. I've learned to use my bucket of receipts and I've done it myself, but we are now going to get an accountant.
Yeah.
We're going to get an accountant because quite frankly,
She was tired of getting yelled at.
Yeah,
by me, and that's
I
the truth. It was.
it's
She was tired of getting yelled at,
I
and
can practically see you elbowing her and
Yeah.
saying, "We're getting rid of the bucket."
and it's also so
we
for
don't
us,
always
it's
agree.
difficult to work together. It's very difficult, and so it is sometimes. Maybe that single person, it might be a little easier, but like everyone said, you don't go by and write down what you do. And so for me, it's very hard to give up control of what to do. I want to do everything. Even with her, it's hard for me to give up control of her helping me out. I'm very sensitive about my decorated cookies, which I never wanted to do in the beginning, but I worked hard for my recipe and I didn't want to bake. And so it's hard to give that control up of someone helping me. But yeah, we've had our moments where it's difficult with, mitigating through us helping each other in a productive manner. So I believe we are there now, and we will be, getting that help from an accountant. And that is like the number one, having that business plan, knowing what we wanted to get from our business. And like Laura said, knowing what we're worth and asking for that. And that's scary. It's really scary because you want people to like your product and try it. And then when they do like it and love it and keep coming back, you want to also, see the benefits of what we're producing and the ingredients that we don't skip on. And so that's hard as well.
Your decorated sugar cookies are so beautiful.
Thank
They're
you.
just gorgeous. They're gorgeous.
Thank you.
Uh,
You want to do it.
I did.
How about
well,
that?
your mom talked you into it, and here you are.
She did.
Kate, did you have anything you wanted to add about starting from square one? Let me hold on a second. Let me just unmute you. There you go.
I would just be better organized, and I also didn't have a business plan. So like everyone else had said, it was just kind of like learn as I go. And even just like sitting here, I'm learning so much. And that's like I'm a very open person, and it's important to listen to people who you meet at the markets, whether it's like, oh, you should make this, or hey, did you ever think of like business wise doing this, or different things like that. It's like we have such a community at our fingertips, and we just have to value every member of that community because they are what gives me insight and passion.
I love that. And hearing from all of you, what I take away is, when you Google how to start a business, right, it's going to tell you all the things you absolutely have to do before you get started. You have to have a business plan. You have to know exactly what you're doing. You have to have market tested everything and found your market and found your perfect customer before you ever get started. And from what we've heard, none of that happened, right? But here you are. All of your businesses kind of emerged organically from your passion. Of course, it's really helpful to have support, to be organized, to have things in place, but you all are learning as you go. Every single one of you has said that you're learning as you go. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from this conversation. I hope it's a big takeaway for the other folks that are listening here too. Do not let perfection get in the way of good, right? If this is something you really, really want to do, of course, have as many ducks in a row as you possibly can. Rely on all the supports that you possibly can. But if this is something you really want to do, now is a great time to start, right? What did person Sandy said? It works or it doesn't, right? And that was your philosophy, and it sounds like that was something that most of you, if not all of you, kind of carried with you in building your individual businesses that have all emerged in various ways. You're all doing totally different stuff. You've used different resources. You have built different sizes and styles of businesses that are all working for you, for your needs, and for your passion. So if you are listening, your business might not be a Buns and Bites. It might not be a 13 Stars or a Piper Brown or a Divas Dips or a Yucky River Farm, right? It's going to be your business. It's going to grow organically from your own passion. Just be aware of the things that are out there to help you get to where you want to be. And that's what we're going to try to help you with. We can't solve all of the problems, but you should know that we're in your corner as well. I really am so grateful to all of you for, I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice, for sitting and talking with me today on a Saturday morning. At least it's cold, so you're not missing out on beach time. So, you're welcome for that. Everybody who is registered for this session, as you know, gets the recording. We're also going to be sending around a handout that has information about all the businesses you heard from today. So if you want to find their websites and, look at social media and see what they're doing and probably even connect with them to talk about, how you can collaborate or what supports they use or whatever the case may be, you'll have that opportunity. You'll have that information. I am so, so grateful to every single one of you for speaking with me. I wish you the best of luck. I wish I had more time because I've got like 10 more questions I want to ask. But in the interest of keeping things organized, as we learned, super important, I am going to wind up the panel part of the discussion. We did have a couple of questions in the chat that we weren't able to get to. If any of our business panelists want to peek in there, and if you have an answer that you could add, that would be great. You might not, and that's okay. But for now, thank you, thank you, thank you. So grateful, so happy to hear from all of you. And we are going to transition into the second half of today's session, which is about pricing. And this is something that we have heard from a lot of business owners, that this is a challenge, right? And we just heard from a bunch of business owners that knowing your worth and calculating that worth and asking for a fair price for your product can feel really uncomfortable. How do you find what that fair price is? So that's what we're going to be working through for the second half of today's session. So I'd like to invite our second presenter to unmute, share his screen, and do all of the fun things. Good morning, Serge.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Can, yes.
All right, wonderful. Well, I was listening to the previous presenters, and I'll be the boring one to give people some not so inspiring messages. I mean, all the messages from the previous session were quite great. I will get down on a more tactical level. So we'll look at one element of your agenda, of your strategy, and that is Sing agenda, and talk about that. So am I allowed to share my screen?
You should be, yes.
Okay, let's see. Tell me what you see in front of you.
I see your PowerPoint.
All right. Let me just do one thing here. All right.
Perfect.
Very good. All right. So is it morning still? Good morning, everybody. My name is Serjan Zdravkovic. I am a professor of marketing at Bryant University, and on a daily basis, I talk to students and others about marketing agenda, marketing strategy, including your pricing strategy. Before I start today, quick thank you to Kristen and Gabriela for allowing me into your homes today. Zoom is not the ideal way of doing this, but hopefully it will do today. I think it's a very important topic for any aspiring business owner. And I would encourage you as I go along to drop in any questions you might have in a chat. And Kristen and her team will keep me updated, or from time to time, I'll just stop and see if there are any questions. So hopefully we can address most of the things on your mind today. Does that sound like a good plan? Kristen, I'm looking at you, so thumbs up will always give me a good answer back.
Everything looks great. We're good.
Yeah, I find when you do PowerPoint presentations on Zoom, sometimes you can easily lose your audience. So I certainly hope that everybody stays engaged, and that's the agenda and hope today.
We're here. We're good. We're listening.
Awesome. All right. What I'm going to do actually is, so I have 3 screens in front of me, and on one I can see what everybody's looking at, and oh, it still shows as a box. Never mind. I thought if I just mute my video, it will provide you with a bigger space on your slide, but it looks like there's still a little person shape, yes, on your screen?
We can just see
Oh,
the
you can-
whole PowerPoint. We can't
Okay.
see any of the
Okay.
photos. Yep.
And you can get rid of me if you want to. All right. So I mean, I don't have to talk too much about what price itself is. I mean, clearly, it's an essential element of your agenda. It is the element that everybody's familiar with, but I think it's crucial. It's important to examine this element from 2 standpoints. So, from the standpoint of a business and from the standpoint of a consumer, because those 2 standpoints are not the same. So let's look at this from the standpoints of a business. Basically, what we're looking at traditionally, we're looking at marketing strategy as outlined by these 4 elements on your screen. Your previous speakers talked about delicious cookies and other awesome products that you as a small business owner might start with. And I caught at the end of that presentation some comments regarding reverse engineering, right? We develop a cookie and then we try to figure out what the target audience is and how exactly to do this. I mean, in the ideal world, some of this business plan, this marketing agenda would be something that's laid out in front of you as you're starting your venture. But of course, this is always work in progress. So your product from time to time gets to be adjusted, changed, innovated. Your promotion changes, maybe depending on season. Where you sell will change from time to time, and your price definitely needs to be something that you proactively work on. So, from the organizational standpoint, when we look at business plan or marketing strategy or marketing agenda, these are 4 main elements that we are dealing with. Now, from consumer standpoint, the picture is a little bit different. So it's not about product and promotion. I mean, consumer looks at this very differently because consumer looks at this as through the lens of a value seeker, right? Consumer wants something of value that will improve their life, that will be delicious, that will provide good memories, that will excite them on some level. So they don't quite look at it from the same standpoint. And this is extremely important for all of you to keep in mind, that you are not your consumer. Your consumer is your consumer. And if they like it, great. And if they don't like it, it's also great for them. Maybe not for you, but that's their opinion. And we need to deal with it. So from the consumer standpoint, they look at this in terms of whether or not something, product in this case, whether it's a candle or a piece of art or a knitted hat, it really doesn't matter. whether product is acceptable to them. Does it look good? Does it taste good? Is it trendy? Is it appropriate for the season? Of course, you need to continuously work on your agenda in terms of developing and spreading awareness for your product. So how do I get to be known by the consumers? Next thing is thinking about ability to be accessible by the consumers. So do you travel with your product? Do you have a website? Do you actually partner up with some retailers and sell through their stores? I mean, without consumer being able to access your product, no matter what quality of this product is, it's going to be really hard to achieve your ultimate goal of success. And finally, and the most important point in the context of this session today is how affordable consumer perceives our product to be. And from the technical standpoint, if you look at product promotion, place, and price, we need to think about this in terms of revenue versus expenses. So if you think about developing your product, if you think about figuring out how to promote, if you think about where to sell, I love the term one of the previous speakers used. She used the term a bucket of receipts, and I use buckets as a terminology that's quite memorable and works well with students as well. Basically, we're looking at two buckets here: bucket of expenses and bucket of that hopefully will counterbalance these expenses and will produce enough revenue to keep us afloat. So promotion, place, and product itself would all be on a side of expenses. It costs money to do all of those. Whereas at the same time, our revenue or our price is really the only revenue element that we are working with here in order to create that counterbalance so we can stay in business long term. Price, of course, will have a direct influence on your profits. Price will influence the quantity that you sell. I mean, if you think about consumer demand, we find inverse relationship between the price and demand. So when price is high, demand is low. When price is low, demand is high. And that's something that each business owner needs to keep in mind. And another point is that this is frequently probably a question that you are asked or that you ask yourself, or perhaps your investors are asking you. And that question is, well, how do you scale this business? How do you make it bigger and better? And when they ask you this question, basically they're asking you how long it might take to see your fixed expenses, your overhead expenses start going down. Because as you produce that additional cookie or additional piece of art, the equipment that you use to manufacture whatever this product is will diminish. So the more we make, the less expensive the lesser our costs are, which then provides us with more flexibility to set our prices appropriately. In a more technical terms, and I'm sure everybody here is familiar with this, and again, I'm just going to reflect back on one of the previous comments. The comment was regarding, hey, I learned a lot about Excel, and Excel could be one of many tools that you utilize, but it's certainly a very valuable one. and keeping track of these numbers and using Excel to quickly identify where you stand could be a really easy way of doing what this screen in front of you is showing. As I said earlier, price is the only element that accumulates revenue. And when we talk about influencing price, well, your profit formula is pretty straightforward. So it looks at total revenue minus total cost. Your total revenue is dependent on your price. We need price and quantity sold, and then your total cost, of course, are all the overhead or fixed expenses plus all of your variable costs. Now, underneath here, I have some examples of what these fixed and variable cost expenses are. This, of course, is business dependent. So depending on what you do, some of these costs might be more or less applicable. Typically, when we talk about fixed expenses, we look at the rent, salary, insurance, some things that will not change depending on that will not change with the change in your product output. So regardless of whether you make 5 cookies or 50 cookies, that fixed expense will stay the same. Now, variable cost is directly correlated to your output. So when you calculate your total variable cost, make sure that you always are multiplying unit variable cost by the total number of units available in your business. And that gives us the total cost, which is equal to, let me try something here, which is equal to your fixed expenses, total variable expenses. All right, so from time to time, questions do come up. And one of these questions that you might be thinking about is frequently, well, in the context of what I talked about previously, so your fixed and variable cost, in the context of those, how exactly do I go about calculating cost of my time? And I mean, there are several methods to calculate the cost of your time. What I have on your screen are 3 of them that could be used quite fast and efficiently. First one, just looking up your cost of doing something. Identifying whether profit margin or markup on these costs are going to be, and that gives you the final number in terms of how much you should be paying yourself for whatever job you're doing. Now, the second option is something we call opportunity cost. Basically, you need to look around and identify alternative things that you could be doing with your time if you weren't doing what you're doing with your business. So if I'm not doing lawn service today, I could be working at Target, or I could be working construction, or I could be doing something else, or I could be sitting at home watching my kids, for example, and not paying the babysitter to do the same job. So then we would identify what those costs are, and perhaps those costs could be translated into what your salary for doing your job should be. Finally, again, I said depending on your industry, different industries, different salary rates. I would definitely go out there, do some investigative work, try to find out what kind of industry benchmarks we are looking at, and maybe that's the starting point for your salary calculation. Perhaps if you really, really wanted to be thorough, you would identify a few different methods of calculating the cost of your time. And then maybe you can simply do, after you figure out all of those methods. So let's say markup method comes up with $20, opportunity cost method comes up with $22, and industry benchmark comes up with $24 per hour. Well, I take all those three together, I take an average of those three, and I conclude that reasonable salary expectation for what I do would be $22 in this case, right? 20 plus 22 plus 24 divided by 3 equals $22. And please correct me if I'm running some of these numbers just off the top of my head. If I make any mistakes, please just shout out your comments. If Kristen allows you, of course.
You're always allowed to shout out comments in the chat. Speaking of the chat, though, sir, we do have a question related to this. They're wondering, what role can or should the value of art, creativity, or ideas play in pricing our time? She makes unique jewelry that goes beyond just the cost of material and time and value. Like, how does she calculate the cost of her creativity?
Yeah, well, that's a different portion of the equation, and I'm going to get to that in probably 5 to 10 minutes when I discuss elements that we consider when calculating our overall price. So I will, on the next slide, actually. What was the name of the person who asked this?
Elaine.
Elaine. Hey, Elaine, great question. And I think the question will be answered before we're done here today. But I wanted to do a quick sort of broad intro of why price is important before I go down to nitty gritty about what you're looking at on your screen. And on your screen, you're looking at I put the roof on this, so maybe it will be a little bit more memorable. I call this the pricing house. So your house should have a roof of some sort. Mine looks like this. It's blue, and your house needs to have a floor. Let me turn on my laser here. It needs to have a floor right here, this orange line. And it needs to have a ceiling. That's your gray line up here underneath the roof. And what Elaine is asking about relates to the ceiling, right? It's not about how much we spend. I mean, that's the absolute minimum where our price needs to live. She's asking, well, my stuff is unique, it's different, it's special. Specialized jewelry, how do I account for that? And that question is demand driven, and basically, at the end of the day, it's driven by consumers out there more than what her cost structure is. So I will get to that in a few minutes, but for right now. A short answer, Elaine, to your question would be, your price can be as high as somebody is willing to pay for it. I know that's a very vague answer, but if there are plenty of people valuing that unique jewelry, your price will probably go high because they will try to bid against each other to buy your stuff. If, however, there's a very limited amount of people interested in buying your specialized jewelry, then you probably will not be able to command as high of a price as you would under the first scenario. So if you look these two blue arrows on my screen, the point here of this image is that price is going to live somewhere between, and I mean this long term, maybe short term, you want to incentivize people to come to your business and you are going to sell below cost. That happens, right? So the price will be somewhere down here below your floor. Typically, if you want to stay in business long term, the price will be somewhere between the floor, the cost, and the top demand, or what somebody is willing to pay for your goods. Then, in between these two, we have all kinds of other things to consider. Perhaps the most important one is what competition is doing, because your price will be affected by those competitive moves. And if there's not much competition, your price might end up somewhere up here. If there's a lot of competition, your price might end up somewhere down here. Kristen, do you think that's good for now? I'll come back to this in a second.
That made sense to me, and that's
Oh.
saying something, so.
Lane, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
All right. So, since we see the picture, I'm going to move and look at a few elements here, or few things related to cost-based pricing, demand-based pricing, and competitive pricing. So let's start with the cost. And as we go along, you'll notice I'll keep this image consistent on your slide so you can refer quickly to it, and for an easy reference. I mentioned this already earlier when I talked about your salary calculation. When you think about cost-based pricing, it is essential. It is essential to, let me just skip one slide here, to keep an excellent inventory of your cost structure in order to properly utilize markup costing models. So when I say excellent inventory, what I mean is this could be an example that you plug into Excel. You have a little Excel file. It comes with most Microsoft Office packages, or all of them really, and it's on most of your computers, and there, depending on how many different SKUs or items you have in your inventory, you can line them all up in lines, and then across in each one of these columns, you can talk about variable and fixed expenses. In my previous few slides, I looked at candles, so I decided to stick with that example. And example here could be that your variable expenses consist of, well, how much do I spend on wax and wick and oil and container, label, and whatever else. I'm not a candle expert. I made it once in my life, and it's sunk in. So please chat to me what I did wrong. But I'm sure for all of you candle makers, this is definitely not the end of the list. And then under your fixed expenses, you would talk about your salary, whether you have to buy any special machines or equipment, how much you spend on the internet, if you are selling this through your e-commerce site, and so on, right? Thorough and detailed list of expenses is necessary. And I know some of you might be looking at this thinking, oh man, this is going to take a while to put together. And I don't disagree. If you want to do it right, it will take some time. But I promise you that the long-term returns on investments like this, on building these models and files and getting yourself organized, is going to pay off. It will keep you well informed, and you will quickly be able to calculate things that mentioned in a previous slide, right? What is my markup price, or what should my markup price be? Well, if I know my expenses, I can quickly add whatever my profit goal or profit margin goal is to that cost, and I will see what my price is. Alternative method to this is to implement something we call cost plus pricing. So let's say I'm selling candles. Instead of saying I want to make 20% markup on each one of my candles, I say making $4 on each candle sold is good for me. Therefore, price will be X, Y, or Z. So those could be two simple cost-based approaches. Now, one thing, and I had a bit more of this, but Kristen was smart to warn me in advance that running too many formulas in such short period of time could turn some of the audience against me. Lucky me, there's no tomatoes involved today. So on Zoom, it's a risk-free lecture. So I certainly can't share with any of you. At the end, I'll provide you with my contact info. You can reach out to me, and I'll share with you any other or answer any other questions you might have. But I felt it's crucial to introduce you to at least some quantitative data here as we talk about pricing. I mean, the fact is that without some quantitative analysis, your pricing strategy will probably be somewhat deficient. And maybe you're not the most qualified or most comfortable with running some of these pricing models. And for that, I recommend you look around for maybe another employee or a relative or neighbor's son who is really good at algebra. It really doesn't matter. But reaching out to people who can quickly provide you with some of this evidence will be extremely useful to your business plan, and will save you a lot of headaches. So here I am simply introducing or bringing up, when it comes to cost-based pricing, bringing up this issue of what we call break-even volume or break-even analysis. This should be something that every, especially small business owners who can relatively easily accumulate all of their cost structure or numbers related to cost, it would be extremely useful to make sure that you know what your break-even volumes are. And what I mean by this is I need to calculate how many units of output I need to sell out there at the appropriate price in order for me to break even or not to be at loss or be profiting. So at which point are my costs and my revenue basically equal? And I'm using artwork as an example here. And basically what I'm saying is, hey, if the price of each of my artworks is $129, and I have calculated, remember, I went through and I looked at how much canvas, how much my time, how much everything is costing me to do this. And then I looked at the cost, my fixed expenses. Let's say this is related to renting a studio somewhere in downtown Providence, right? How do I calculate how many of these art pieces do I have to sell in order to break even? So first thing you do is you take a look at your contribution per unit. Contribution consists of calculation between price and variable cost. That would be $85. That's what I make when I subtract 44 from 129. And then I take my contribution and I divide my fixed expenses, $4,000, by that contribution to calculate that my break-even volume is 47. Well, what does this 47 mean? Well, that means that if I sell 46 units, I will still be in the hole. But if I if I sell 48 units, I will be seeing some profit at the end of the day. So make sure that that this break-even volume is calculated for all the SKUs that you have in your inventory. So some things, variable cost, calculate your break-even volume. And
Sir,
speaking of art, and
sorry.
this, oh, yes,
Excuse
go
me,
ahead.
Serge, can I ask a question?
Sure.
How frequently should somebody revisit that variable cost calculator? I'm especially thinking about folks who are making food and other items where some of the ingredients are gonna wildly vary, right? We've got the egg thing
Yeah.
that we're all going through, right? And I can't imagine it's a good look to raise and lower your costs all the time related to that. So how often is the ideal how often should somebody ideally go back in and calculate what that cost, that variable cost is?
Yeah. So look, actually, if you utilize technology, which is available to most of you right now, it becomes a pretty straightforward exercise. It's your Excel file will basically be set through some formulas, and instead of 44, I can simply replace it with 43 and see how my break-even volume might change. Now you're right, Kristen, and I think doing this daily would just be a killer, of course. But doing this occasionally from time to time, definitely doing it several times during the year, I think could provide you with a good idea of where your overall agenda is going to. So on one hand, if you are thorough with your data keeping, it could actually be a pretty straightforward exercise. On another hand, I certainly don't advise that you frequently change your price, because changing your price every day or every month might actually turn consumers off. So what you would actually end up with if you do this frequently is simply a better idea of how many units might you have to sell higher or lesser than what you had to sell yesterday in order to break even today. So do it. Use technology to be more efficient, and do it at least from time to time, like quarterly. Doing these exercises, I think, would be a good idea.
Thank you. And we have another question in the chat from Elaine
Sure.
relating to this example you have on the screen.
Sure.
And she's wondering what's the time period for this, right? You have your fixed cost versus your variable costs and your break even point. How do you calculate how long that is for? Like, I need to sell 47 a month, a quarter?
Yeah. So it depends. Good question. So again, it depends. We need to compare apples to apples here, right? So if I'm looking at total fixed costs for a month, let's say this $4,000 is how much rent is for a commercial space in Providence per month, then the number 47 will be monthly amount. If this was annual, then this would be annual amount. Then divided by 12 to see what your monthly goals might be.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So yes, that's a really good question, and comparing apples to apples is the key. All right. So let's move on here, and let's stick with art very quickly. I just wanted want some engagement in the chat. Kristen, I'm gonna let you give us a tally here. And engagement will be by you. I'm going to show you an art next, and you will tell me whether or not you are willing to pay the amount that appears on the screen in front of you for this piece of art. Well, actually, it's 3 pieces of art, and here they are. Francis Bacon's triptych, I'm going to say that's how you pronounce that, inspired by the Orestia of whatever you want to pronounce here.
So
the
in
price
the chat,
price was $84.6 million for this trio of artwork. Who's taking it, Kristen? You count all the yeses.
yeah, well, let's see. So in the chat, if you would be willing to pay $84.6 million for this triptych, pipe up. I can tell you I'm a little short in my bank account for this, so it's gonna be a no for me. So we're getting no's across the board so far.
Yeah. So going back to Elaine's previous first question, this is an excellent example of what we sometimes believe the value of our goods is and how consumers perceive the value. I'm not sure if this artist ever dreamed that this piece of art would fetch this price, but it did because somebody at the auction house put this out there, and people basically outbid each other, and they eventually raised the ceiling for $4.6 million. Similar to, I'll show you one more, and then we'll move on. Similar to this one. Check this out. This piece of art is from 1610. Somebody in China must have thought this was just a brilliant item, and was willing to spend 512 million renminbi. So this is the symbol for Chinese currency, which at the time equaled $76 million. I basically picked these two because in 2020, these 2 pieces of art were the highest paid pieces of art globally. And again, it's I'm not sure what the starting bids were. I'm not sure how much auction house believe they can get for it, but eventually, because somebody was willing to spend this much, they earned 76.6 million for this. And that's, I think, a great illustration of what demand-based pricing is all about. Look, you might be making beautiful scarves and gloves, and life is great selling that in a winter. But guess what? Selling that in the summer is just not going to be as good, and that ceiling is going to drop all the way down on your head, and you cannot convince people to spend $20, $30, $50 for a pair of gloves because it's just out of season. The demand is just not there. However, if you are crafty and entrepreneurial enough, and you hear on TV that Florida is going to be hit by a freeze in 2 weeks, and you manage to ship your inventory down to Florida, you're going to make some serious cash, because Floridians will not be able to find those items in their regular stores. They will walk around with socks on their hands because that's the only option available. Right? So it depends on time, it depends on season, it depends on circumstances, it depends on how forced we are to buy something. And more we are forced, the higher this price goes. The question came up, speaking of art, this is also one of the expensive 2020 pieces, just so you know. The question came up about, do I price my art differently depending on where I sell my art. And this applies to all of you who might be selling in multiple channels. So I assume that many of you are selling on the internet. So maybe you have your website or e-commerce site of some sort. And then maybe some of you are artists who also partner up with local galleries and sell through them. Now, if your question is, do I price my art differently depending on where I sell? The answer is definitely yes. And it's yes because you don't want to get into a situation where you compete with your partners. So, Kristen, question number 2 for chat. On the screen, I have a scenario where you sell your artwork to the gallery partner for $100. My question to you is, what should be your online price? So on your own e-commerce site, how much should you charge for the same piece of art?
Okay, so put in the chat.
Let's see what kind of numbers come in our way.
Let's see. There's no wrong answers. We're all learning together.
Of course, of course.
So what would you sell this for online? We have some.
Dan said same price. All right, thank you, Dan. Fanny said 100. Ooh, look at that. 200 from Aura. All right. Just a few more. Same, Cat. Okay. Miles says 300, definitely more. When we find out how much the gallery is selling for. Oh, let me see whose comment was that. Gabby. Good comment. And that's precisely. So Gabby and Bruce are thinking on the same wavelength, I think. And I'm just going to stop here for now. Because think about it this way. If you sell to the gallery for $100, is gallery going to sell it for $100? Well, definitely not, right? So gallery will have some markup or profit margin goals that they want to satisfy. So we have a partnership in which we know what their end price is going to be, or if we don't, we should probably inquire or maybe stop by or send somebody to stop by and check out on how much this is being sold for. And then our e-commerce, our website price should be set in a way that doesn't undermine this partner. Because imagine this, you sell it to them for 100 and you find out that they sell for 140 because that's their profit margin they want to achieve. And then you just continue selling for 100. Well, guess what? Where reasonable consumer is going to buy these goods? I mean, if you're reasonable and you have a few minutes to check, you would buy for 100 if it's the same thing, which would long-term mean that your partner will simply stop buying from you because they have no interest in selling something that they are not competitive selling. So you always need to keep your eyes open for what the price of this is. And somebody mentioned in the chat that you will be gaining a lot of volume from selling through the gallery. This volume should mean something to you. So if gallery sells for 140, maybe you can quote this for 150 or 60. Be more expensive on your website because you know that the gallery will end up selling more of this merchandise because they see more consumers go through their store. So make sure you don't undermine your partners. Does that make sense, Kristen?
Yeah, so it sounds, in general, whatever you're selling, if you're going to be, we'll translate it into wholesale sales, right? If you're going to be selling your product wholesale, you have to give the wholesaler the opportunity to sell it at the same price you would sell directly to the customer.
Precisely.
Perfect.
Or just try to do your best not to undermine their agenda, right? So I'm looking at time and I'm just going to, no, actually I don't. We have about 12 minutes, right, Kristen?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So, few technical terms here, or few approaches you might consider when it comes to this demand-based agenda. Hey, you might be the only cookie place on a street, and nobody else is available. Perhaps this first strategy that we call skimming approach, or skimming pricing strategy, is appropriate for you. So you set high profit margin. Unfortunately, with that strategy, when others see your success, they will typically enter the same space. And when they enter the same space, it becomes more competitive and you are forced to bring your prices down. The opposite is, you are the 10th cookie place on the street. You believe you have something awesome. You want to sell it to the consumer. Maybe setting lower prices to introduce yourself is a good idea to make this introduction to the customer, to build some loyalty, to build some following, to build some favorable word of mouth, and then with lower price and greater demand, your cost will diminish in the future, so you'll be making more money. So again, two approaches, but they depend on some environmental circumstances. In addition, you can always think about doing some research. So go out and investigate. And this research can be done by posting one or few questions on your social media account, by initially sharing a little questionnaire with your friends and family. So it doesn't have to be super sophisticated, but it gives you an idea of what you're talking about here, right? If I'm making these winter hats, I know the consumer is not willing to spend more than $10, because I investigated and found this out. And then I look at my cost of my time, cost of material, cost of moving and shipping items, and I realize that I cannot make this for less than $12. Then perhaps perhaps I should focus on gloves or scarves, because I can make something with that. We do research, we identify how much what's the top price consumer is willing to spend, and then work backwards or reverse engineer it to make sure that we can be in a plus or in a black at the end of the day. Bundle pricing is always a good idea, or I take that back. It's not a good idea, it's an idea. And I think this session today is intended to provide you with some ideas that you can pick and choose from, and hopefully have some success with. But bundle pricing is one of those approaches where you bundle several items together to give somebody an incentive to buy multiple items rather than one item at the time. And typically, when you buy multiples, you receive some sort of discount. Think McDonald's value meal or whatever they're called. Typically, when you order that meal, it's less than when you buy multiple items separately. Why is this maybe long-term good idea? Well, again, when you give consumers price incentives and they buy bigger quantity, always think back to that fixed expense point that I made earlier. With bigger quantity, your fixed expense per unit diminishes. And when that fixed expense per unit diminishes, you end up with a greater flexibility in how much you can charge for your product and still make money at the end of the day. So size or volume plays a big role when it comes to your cost cutting. And I mentioned this earlier in terms of seasonality of your product. Think about last minute deals, think about out of season deals, think about ways of keeping consumers engaged. So if I was knitting scarves and hats, I suppose I could take between May and August off, or I could have some sort of specials that go through summer to keep my consumers engaged and informed. So when cold months arrive, they will be more, they will remember you more than maybe some alternative options, right? At the end of the day, we can have, and this is maybe too simplistic, but we have, we can charge above, at or below market price, right? And this takes us in this category of what do I have to do with the price itself in response to where my competitors stand. So I can investigate some benchmarks, and I can say, hey, I'm going to charge as much as somebody who sells similar goods will charge, or you know that you provide more value, therefore I charge a little more. Maybe your costs are higher, so you have to charge a little bit more. Or maybe you want to establish yourself and you are prepared to short term stay in price below competitors, which will help you build your awareness and loyalty and following and keep you in business long term. Sometimes, if you have multiple items, you might decide to take a loss on some of these items in order to gain on whatever else you have to offer. Think about this as a frequently purchased items in your grocery store. Not sure how much stores are making on milk and bread, but real margins might be made on chips and other things that are bought between those two items that they might be actually selling at cost. With competitive environment, there's an image you might find appealing in terms of a quick and easy way of identifying whether or not you should respond to competitors' price cuts. So we look at this and you examine competition from time to time, and you ask yourself questions. Have they their prices? If no, hold your current price. That's pretty straightforward. If yes, you need to ask yourself a secondary question. Will lower price negatively affect our market share and profit? If the answer is no again, then you hold your current price. If them lowering their price will negatively affect your market share and profit, you need to ask yourself a third question, that is, can or should effective actions be taken? If no, you hold the price. If yes, you start thinking about what these actions are going to look like. You can reduce price. Perhaps you can increase perceived value, right, and keep your same price. You can improve quality and keep the price or even increase price. Or you can, from time to time, decide to launch a new item in your assortment that will fight with lesser expensive competitor brand, right? So you still keep your current assortment at high price, but you introduce something at the lesser amount that will compete with those competitors. And last thing I would like to conclude this with are few, hopefully, summary points that are somewhat memorable for you. I mentioned all of this already, but this is sort of a summary of the main points. I know this is easy to write and not so easy to execute, but being in demand, of course, will drive prices up. Question is, how do you end up being in demand? And yes, developing good product is one part, but being accessible and being at the point where consumer is aware of you are equally important. So it's not just the price, it's the whole bundle of marketing mix elements. The floor of your pricing strategy, remember that line at the bottom, well, your price long-term should be covering that line. Otherwise, you find yourself in a financial difficulties, which is not good. You also need to keep in mind that the newer something is, the higher the price it commands. So keep in mind, if your product has been around for a while and somebody new and improved shows up, they might start charging more, and you might have to increase your value in order to catch up with them. If you have one product that you offer, this gives you greater latitude in setting the price. But if you have multiple SKUs in your assortment, you need to keep some consistency. You can't be known as a cheap glove maker and expensive hat maker, because that leads to confusion and people look at you and really not know anything about you. So consistency is a plus. And remember that Excel file. Well, think about starting one if you don't have one. Eliminate those receipt buckets and keep track of what competition is doing, where your costs stand. Build a few quick models that you can run from time to time to give you an idea of where you stand. And I promise you, you will have more pleasant Saturdays and Sundays as you're running your small business. That's all I have. I think we have 1 minute for any other questions, but I can stay here for as long as you need. And for anybody who has any questions for me, my email is on the screen. Please feel free to reach out. Just if you could, in the subject line, put something like hobby to business, so I can prioritize your message when it comes my way.
Thank you so much, Serge. That was so helpful. And just as a reminder to everybody, you will all be getting a copy of the recording. You'll all be getting a copy of these slides. So you'll have the email address you see on the screen. We hope you can join us for next week's session, where we're going to be talking about all the fun bureaucratic part of running a business. I promise it's going to be more fun than it sounds. We're going to be talking about registering a business, licensing and permitting, and taxes, including personal income taxes, corporate taxes, and sales taxes. We'll actually have the Rhode Island Division of Taxation here to help answer any questions you will have. So please join us for that. If you're not able to join us live, again, if you registered for this one, you will get a copy of that recording as well. Serge, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this for us.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
I really, really appreciate it. Thank you all for attending. We wish you a happy Saturday. We'll stick around for a little bit if you have any questions, but I'm going to stop the recording and let you all go enjoy the rest of your chilly day. Thanks, everybody.